Marble light spilled across the glossy surface of the studio table, bouncing off polished wood and glass. The cameras were live. The audience at home had settled into couches and chairs, not knowing that within the next 5 minutes, a confrontation would unfold that would ignite social media, dominate news cycles, and etch itself into the annals of viral political clashes. The air was already tense, heavy with the heat of hot lights and sharper egos. Then it happened. Kellyanne Conway leaned forward, face taut, eyes blazing, her voice erupting into a scream. "Stop twisting facts. Just stop talking." The live TV studio froze. Panelists stared. The host struggled to hold the show together. Reporters gasped. And yet, through the chaos, Jasmine Crockett sat perfectly still. She did not raise her voice. She did not match volume with volume. Instead, when Conway's tirade burned itself into silence, Crockett leaned into her microphone, her voice calm, precise, surgical. Volume isn't evidence, Kellyanne. If quiet rattles you, maybe you fear the truth. The words sliced through the air like a verdict. For a heartbeat, the studio stood in suspended animation. And then, it erupted. Shocked silence, a thunderclap of applause, a viral moment born before millions of viewers. Hit like, subscribe, because this is not just a story about one clash. This is the anatomy of a political showdown where chaos met composure, and composure won. Jasmine Crockett. Raised through adversity, her roots stretch from working-class neighborhoods to the marble floors of Congress. She is a truth-teller, forged in the fires of law and activism. Known for fearless preparation, sharp data, and disarming composure, she has built a reputation not as the loudest in the room, but as the most prepared. In hearings, she carries her notes like a sword, her silence like a shield. She is respected not for rhetoric, but for receipts, feared not for shouting, but for clarity. Kellyanne Conway. Former White House advisor, seasoned political strategist. A master of spin, a veteran of TV studios, infamous for coining alternative facts. She thrives on volume, rapid-fire talking points, and aggressive interruptions. For years, she has commanded cameras with brash certainty, a performer who wins not by proving, but by overwhelming. She is elite, polished, arrogant, used to controlling the conversation and leaving opponents flustered. Two figures, two styles. Two Americas colliding in one studio. The stage was not a courtroom, but it felt like one. The set of a prime-time cable news broadcast. Cameras lined every angle. Studio lights burned hot against polished wood. The hum of air conditioning barely cut through the tension. Commentators sat shoulder to shoulder at the panel table. The host shuffled notes nervously, aware that this segment was being watched not just by late-night audiences, but by influencers, reporters, and politicians scanning for clips. Behind the cameras, producers whispered urgently into headsets, their eyes glued to monitors. The stakes were not small. This debate centered on the credibility of American politics itself. Truth versus spin, facts versus fury, composure versus chaos. In an age where shouting often drowned out substance, millions of viewers wondered, would anyone stand calm against the storm? The vibe was electric. The sense in the studio, unspoken yet undeniable, was that this was more than another panel debate. History and meme culture might collide here. The segment began politely enough. Conway rattled off points with machine gun rhythm, her words spilling faster than the host could steer. She pointed fingers, interrupted others, and leaned forward into every camera angle. When Crockett spoke, she was calm. Her cadence was measured, her facts precise. She cited numbers, referenced legislation, pointed to lived experience. Each sentence was a brick in a wall of clarity. But Conway grew restless. Her interruptions sharpened. Her laughter turned mocking. "Oh, please," she scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Spare us the lecture. Nobody buys that." Panelists shifted in their seats. The imbalance was clear. Conway's volume filled the room. Crockett's quiet precision seemed, for the moment, overshadowed, and then it escalated. Conway shouted over the host, her voice climbing higher. "This is nonsense. Just nonsense. Do you even know what you're talking about?" She jabbed her finger in Crockett's direction, leaning so far forward it looked like she might stand. "Stop twisting facts. Just stop talking," she screamed, the words echoing in the studio. Gasps spread among the panelists. The host tried to interject, but Conway plowed through, her tirade rolling in waves. And through it all, Jasmine Crockett sat still. She calmly wrote a note on her pad. She lifted her water glass, took a sip, set it down. She waited. The frustration built. Viewers watching at home clenched fists. The imbalance felt unfair. The panel crackled with tension. And everyone leaned forward, waiting for the moment when intelligence would answer noise. The storm burned itself out. Conway's voice finally trailed into silence. Her chest heaved with breath. She glanced around, expecting applause or agreement. Instead, the room was quiet. Eyes turned to Jasmine Crockett. Crockett leaned into her microphone, her voice calm, unshaken. "Volume isn't evidence, Kellyanne." She paused, letting the silence thicken. "If quiet rattles you, maybe you fear the truth." The words detonated. Simple, direct, surgical. Conway froze. For the first time in the segment, she had no words. Her mouth opened, then closed. She fumbled for a paper in front of her, her eyes darting. The silence stretched, and the silence condemned. The studio audience burst into applause. Panelists who had smirked moments earlier now nodded slowly. The host's eyes widened, then softened with relief. Cameras zoomed in on Conway's rattled expression. Her confidence cracked. Jasmine Crockett did not gloat. She did not raise her voice. She simply waited, calm, steady, composed. The energy in the studio shifted instantly. The air that had been heavy with Conway's shouting now vibrated with respect for Crockett's calm. Panelists exchanged glances of awe. The host leaned forward, praising her composure. Conway fumbled, trying to regain footing. But the audience's reaction had already sealed the verdict. The authority of the room no longer belonged to her. It belonged to Crockett. Reporters in the control booth typed frantically. Crockett silences Conway with one line. Producers clipped the moment instantly for replay. History felt made inside that studio. The clip hit Twitter within minutes. By the time the broadcast ended, #TruthOverVolume and #CrockettCalm were trending. TikTok edits looped Conway's screaming face with Crockett's calm stare. Text overlaid, "When volume meets facts." Memes spread like wildfire. One side showing Conway red-faced mid-scream, the other showing Crockett with the caption, "Volume isn't evidence." Commentators on late-night shows replayed the moment, calling it a masterclass in composure. Political podcasts devoted entire episodes to dissecting the exchange. By midnight, the clip had millions of views. By morning, it was international. The confrontation set a new standard. For years, shouting had dominated political panels. But Crockett's calm reply shifted the culture. It showed that composure could outshine chaos, that truth could silence tantrums. Her line became a rallying cry, quoted in classrooms, repeated at rallies, etched on posters. Volume isn't evidence. Conway's style, once effective, began to look outdated. Aggressive interruptions now drew skepticism. Audiences compared every loud pundit to her viral moment and found them wanting. For Jasmine Crockett, her stature rose. She became not just respected but iconic, an embodiment of strength without shouting, clarity without chaos. Years later, the moment still echoes. Commentators call it the turning point, a cultural reset, the day composure won. And when history remembers it, it remembers the silence after Crockett's words, the silence that stunned everyone, the silence that spoke louder than the scream. Kellyanne Conway screamed at Jasmine Crockett, but Crockett's response stunned everyone. And in that silence, the world heard truth.